Among the many philosophical arguments that has been demanded during and in retrospection post-pandemic is whether collective groupthink is superior to a collection of individuals. Well, the jury is out. Individualism wins on all counts. Collective groupthink failed during the pandemic because it relies on a centralized node to determine all course of actions for the benefit of the group. For instance, the CDC, NIH, UN, WHO, and Dr. Fauci, head of the COVID task force, are all official institutions of authority and power, the center node, if you will. The problem lies in if the central node fails, the entire network of nodes fails also.
Sir, it is clear the board are either unwilling or unable to terminate their subspace links.
That may be their Achilles heel, Captain. Their interdependency.
What do you mean, Doctor?
He's part of their collective consciousness now. Cutting him off would be like asking one of us to disconnect an arm or a foot. We can't do it.
They operate as a single mind.
One of them jumps off a cliff, they all jump off.
As the commands and orders pass from one node to another node to the next, each node is designed not to question, but to simply comply and relay the orders. Weakness in 3 ways. Number 1, poor guidance and action plan without second or third opinion. Number 2, information being falsely interpreted or incorrectly relayed. And number 3, the biggest danger, and in my analysis, the true culprit, is infiltration or subversion of the centralized node. You cut off the head of the snake, the whole thing withers. A collection of individuals would have blocked all 3 of the weaknesses of the collective groupthink after it hit the second node or the third. The second node would have evaluated the value of the information and determined if it was worth repeating, or if not, it would have sent out a warning and an alternative suggestion of action. Thus, the entire network would have been saved.
Interesting, isn't it? Not a human, not a sheep, not like anything you've ever seen. Man, this is humanoid.
This has worked in the past. During most of the history of Europe, we have seen Europe being divided into many kingdoms. If an internal or outside threat emerged, it generally can be 1 or 2 kingdoms, but by the third, it has been worn out and exhausted, while its opposition has had time to adapt. This is contrary to if the threat had to battle just one massive empire in a pitched battle or a seizure of the capital. With this in mind, it can easily be understood why the pandemic became political. As of 2022, it can generally be accepted that the libertarians support freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of expression, small business, and small government. Opposite, the Democratic Party has become Marxist and highly supports socialistic programs like education, healthcare, popular vote, universal basic income, big business, mass media, collective thought, and collective dress, all the while bitterly opposing any ideas that contradicts the narrative of the centralized node. It has become eerily obvious of the dangers of such beliefs and behaviors, like a population voluntarily surrendering their individual sovereign rights, masking children, wearing 2 or even 3 masks, forced mandatory experimental vaccines, wearing masks in cars, mask wearing indefinitely, waiting for orders from the top, which will never come, setting up temporary outside closed dining structures while perfectly good actual dining structures exist right next to it, barring regular medical patients from hospitals and only accepting COVID patients, waiting for hours to get tested for COVID while not even experiencing any symptoms, and finally, waiting to achieve 100% immunity before lifting mask and social distancing policies. This can happen when people are afraid to speak up or against the official narrative, or have no independent thoughts of their own.
Neural connections complete. I have access to the Borg subspace signals. Processing. Processing.
Data.
Stand by. Processing. Processing.
Solution. America does have a hybrid system in the form of a United States, where each state governs its own unique affairs, and a federal DC government handles foreign affairs. We need to go back to a balance of this system instead of the federal government interfering and overstepping into state affairs. Internationally, we need to go back to strong national governments and distance ourselves from a global economy and a global currency where if the central node's economy crashes, the whole global economy crashes as well. Throughout American history, it was the individual who went against the grain with their own unique ideas and convictions that created progress forward, not the group follower, both politically and culturally. So how does a self-proclaimed free nation born from a revolution go wildly off the rails? Over the last couple of decades, we have seen a monopolization of media, a media pushing and celebrating a subliminal message of collectivism. Policies and agencies being regulatory captured by global corporate interest. The breakup of the traditional nuclear family and chemicals in the food and water due to mass production. Overindulgence of entertainment and technology. And finally, a corrupted and timid lack of leadership. However, there is a glimmer of hope in all of this. The American citizen is not so easily extinguished. Over the last 6 years, America has come roaring back from near death in the form of its own organic alternative internet media, has become educated in psychological operations and false flags, is picketing and protesting en masse, has become active in politics, has become relentlessly defiant in the face of the COVID power grab, has figured out new innovative ways around censorship and technology, and has declared an outright refusal to go quietly into the night. The human spirit is still alive.